debate on religious diversity has come to a head in Britain, in a British university, where students have decided to throw the Bible out of their dorms. Well, students at Aberystwyth University, they feel the inclusion of the Holy Book in bedrooms is inappropriate in a multicultural environment. Almost 300 voted for the move. But the head of the university's Catholic Society doubts the decision will actually promote multiculturalism.
The idea that it's not really multicultural to have Bibles included in universities strikes me as rather strange, because in a truly multicultural and a truly inclusive society, beliefs and values must be shared rather than segregated. Inclusion of Bibles would actually encourage multiculturalism rather than cause any problems for it. It's not a case of insulting people by having the text, the Bibles, in their halls. It's actually offering it to them, not forcing it upon them. Read this if you really want to understand what Christianity is about, and it's your choice.
Article by the editors of GQ, the men's magazine, blasts the Holy Bible, declares it a book you don't have to read, and suggests an alternative. GQ's review of the Holy Bible begins with a snarky slight of Christians.
Say this, quote, "The Holy Bible is rated very highly by all the people who supposedly live by it, but who actually have not read it. Those who have read it know there are some good parts, but overall, it is certainly not the finest thing that man has ever produced. It is repetitive,
self-contradictory, skip that, foolish, and even at times ill-intentioned."
It gets worse. This was all on Friday, the day before on Thursday. Jews News, interesting, published a very interesting and, might I add, very well written article titled, "New Yorker to Christians, We Don't Want Your Kind Around Here." In it, the writer cites a New Yorker article written by Dan Piepenbring, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, who writes that the Chick-fil-A brand's arrival here, speaking of New York, feels like an infiltration, in no small part because of its pervasive Christian traditionalism. Oh no, say it isn't so. You'll forgive my cynicism. It's a sanctified cynicism. That's my story, and I'm sticking with it, so.
The New Yorker slamming Chick-fil-A for its Christian values, saying in an article titled "Chick-fil-A's Creepy Infiltration of New York City," the brand's arrival here feels like an infiltration in no small part because of its persuasive Christian traditionalism.
Its headquarters, speaking of Chick-fil-A, in Atlanta, is adorned with Bible verses and a statue of Jesus washing a disciple's feet. It must surprise the Christians of New York that they are infiltrators in their own community. But in Piepenbring's world, any outsiders must be shunned. He further claims its commercial evangelical messaging are inflected with suburban piety. Elsewhere, he's scandalized by the fact that the restaurant's corporate purpose still begins with the words, wait for it, "to glorify God."
I mean, this is hypocrisy. It's media hypocrisy at its best. And here's the problem. The New Yorker, a liberal, obviously a liberal magazine and all of that, this is what they do. It's the latte-sipping crowd. They talk with other liberals, and all of a sudden it becomes this narrative out there. Christian traditionalism. You mean, hold on, Judeo-Christian values that define this country from its inception? Look, the article is so ridiculous on so many different fronts, but just take this. If this guy is going to write an article like this, well, how about, I don't know, maybe he should stop using money, because the last time I checked, "In God We Trust" is on our currency, and we can go on. And that
proselytism thrums below the surface of the Fulton Street restaurant, which has the homespun ambience of a megachurch. Contempt drips from every word of these sentences. It's merely Piepenbring's bleeding admission that he cannot handle anything reminiscent of the great bugbear of our time. You know what it is? American evangelicalism.
We do know from our other surveys that the United States has been growing less religious in recent decades.